Texts written about the existence of humankind range from myths and epics to sacred scriptures and philosophical works. However, when examining origin narratives, the question arises, was Adam a real person? The story of the first human is not exclusive to the Jewish, Christian, and Islamic traditions. Versions of it exist across many cultures, from the Sumerians to the Egyptians, from Hindu mythology to ancient Greece. Yet, there is a noteworthy point. Why has humanity throughout history created an origin story for the first human in every culture? Is this a necessity inherent in the human mind, or is it an acceptance imposed by a particular belief system? Throughout history, humankind has strived to understand its origins. The unknown, fear, and curiosity have led to the birth of myths. However, scientific and historical data support the idea that Adam is not a historical reality, but rather a product of collective belief. Archaeological findings, genetic studies, and linguistic analyses paint a much different picture of humanity's origin. In the Old Testament, the figure of Adam is defined by the word Adam, which does not refer to an individual name, but rather means human. Similar to the Greek word anthropos or the Latin homo, Adam was later personalized and perceived as a historical figure. However, there is an intriguing point. If Adam were truly real, how could the texts that make up his biography have evolved into so many different versions over time? For throughout history, the Adam narrative has constantly changed, taking on different forms in various cultures and being reinterpreted according to the needs of each period. For example, in Jewish mystical tradition, some interpretations suggest that Adam's existence is not physical, but a spiritual narrative. The Sefer Yetzirah, Book of Creation, proposes that Adam came into being as a combination of mystical letters and numbers. Over time, however, this symbolism was forgotten, and Adam began to be accepted as a real person. This can also be seen in other cultural figures. In ancient Greek mythology, Prometheus, who created humans and gave them fire, has a narrative similar to that of Adam. Yet, no one claims Prometheus was a historical person. So, why is it believed that Adam was a historical figure? Here arises an important question. Did we really all descend from a single person? If so, was there no one before Adam? And what about Adam's children? Whom did they marry? Science presents a very different picture. Genetic research shows that modern humans did not descend from a single individual, but from a large population. Concepts like mitochondrial Eve or Y-chromosomal Adam are often misunderstood as if humanity spread from a single individual. However, these terms refer to a common ancestral lineage and do not indicate that one individual was the first human in a real sense. Genetic studies reveal that humans did not emerge from one person, but from thousands of individuals in a community. If Adam and Eve had been a single couple, our genetic diversity today would be much narrower. Yet, the genetic diversity of Homo sapiens is far too vast to have come from just one human couple. Additionally, it is known that Homo sapiens appeared in Africa around 300,000 years ago and evolved through interaction with various hominid species. Genetic exchange with species like Neanderthals, Denisovans, and Homo erectus has been documented, thus showing that humans were not created suddenly, but rather went through an evolutionary process. If Adam were truly a historical figure, how would we explain this genetic interaction between species? Moreover, the Adam narrative is filled with contradictions not only from a genetic perspective, but also from a historical and mythological standpoint. For example, in sacred texts, Adam's expulsion from the Garden of Eden is recounted. However, this story is also found in Mesopotamian myths. In Sumerian myths, the first human, Adapa, was created by the god Enki and missed the chance to gain immortality. This narrative was adapted into the Jewish and Christian traditions, where Adam and Eve lose immortality by eating the forbidden fruit. Thus, the story of Adam is not an original narrative. It is an adaptation of much older myths. Furthermore, creation stories in religious texts largely stem from Mesopotamian myths. In Sumer, the gods Enki and Ninhursag tell a myth about creating the first human from clay. In the Babylonian Atrahasis epic, gods create humans to serve them. In ancient Egypt, the god Khnum shapes humans on a potter's wheel. In Chinese mythology, the goddess Nua creates humans from clay. In Hindu mythology, the first human, Purusha, is dismembered by the gods, creating the universe and humans. All these narratives suggest that Adam is not a historical figure, but rather a cultural construct that was created and adapted similarly by different peoples. If Adam had truly existed, why are similar stories told under different names across so many cultures? The answer lies in the collective unconscious of the human mind. Humans have produced myths to understand their own existence since ancient times. One of these myths is Adam. However, there is another question. If Adam were truly a historical figure, why are different origin stories told in different regions of the world? If humanity had descended from Adam, his story would need to be told in the same way across all cultures. Yet, each culture explains its origin through a different narrative. This shows that Adam is not a common human figure, but a cultural creation of a specific society. As seen, the belief in Adam being a real person contradicts scientific evidence. The Adam narrative does not align with evolutionary processes, genetic science, or archaeological findings. However, since it has been told for thousands of years, many people accept it as a historical reality. Yet, science offers a very different and evidence-based explanation of humanity's origin. When the scientific, mythological, and cultural evidence suggesting that Adam was not a historical figure is examined in depth, it becomes clearer that this narrative is a product of humankind's effort to make sense of its own existence. However, an interesting question arises. If Adam never truly existed, why do billions of people around the world still believe him to be a real figure? The answer to this question lies in the role of religions throughout human history. Religion has served not only as a belief system, but also as a tool for social order. In many ancient societies, myths were used not only to explain the universe and humanity, but also to form the moral and legal foundations of society. The story of Adam is one of the clearest examples of this. In particular, in the Jewish, Christian, and Islamic traditions, Adam is regarded as a central figure in the story of humanity's origin. However, there is a noteworthy point here. Adam's story is not merely a creation narrative. It is also a story that lays the foundation for the concept of original sin and obedience. In this context, Adam's story is not just about the first human, but also serves as a social mechanism that teaches submission to authority. However, here, the contradiction between the Adam narrative and the evolutionary process is clearly evident. Homo sapiens, as a biological species, appeared approximately 300,000 years ago. But if the creation narratives in sacred texts were true, the history of humanity would be limited to just a few thousand years. Archaeological findings, however, show that the human species dates back much further. Sites like Göbekli Tepe, Çatalhöyük, and other Neolithic settlements provide a glimpse into how humanity evolved from hunter-gatherers to agricultural societies. Given this concrete evidence, why do people still believe in Adam's existence? The answer lies in cultural and psychological factors. The human mind is predisposed to think in stories. People are more likely to adopt personal narratives than to grasp abstract scientific truths. Understanding that an individual has undergone a complex evolutionary process over hundreds of thousands of years is much harder than accepting the notion that one person was created from clay. Therefore, the story of Adam offers a more appealing explanation for many people. Another question arises here. If Adam never existed, how did Eve come to be? In sacred texts, it is claimed that Eve was created from Adam's rib. Yet, this narrative is not unique to the Jewish Christian tradition. For example, in Sumerian mythology, the first woman, Ninti, was created from a part of the god Enki's body. Interestingly, in Sumerian, the word Ninti means both rib and life-giver. Therefore, the story of Eve being created from Adam's rib is actually an adaptation of an ancient Sumerian myth within the Jewish tradition. Similarly, in Egyptian mythology, the god Khnum is said to shape humans on a potter's wheel. In Chinese mythology, the goddess Nuwa creates humans from clay. In Hindu mythology, the first human, Purusha, is dismembered by the gods, forming the universe and humanity. These narratives demonstrate how similar creation myths across different cultures are, showing that Adam is not an original figure, but rather a product of humanity's shared narrative need. However, one of the most significant pieces of evidence suggesting that Adam was not a historical figure comes from linguistic and genetic studies. Today, there are thousands of different languages spoken around the world. If all of humanity truly descended from a single couple, how could there be such linguistic diversity? Language is an evolutionary process, and languages have diverged as a result of geographical isolation, cultural changes, and historical events. If Adam and Eve had really existed, all humans would have had to speak the same language. Yet, archaeological data shows that languages developed independently in different regions. From a genetic perspective, a similar situation arises. If humanity had descended from one couple, genetic diversity would be extremely limited. However, today's human population exhibits vast genetic diversity, which shows that humans evolved over thousands of years in different regions. For example, human communities in Africa have the greatest genetic diversity, providing crucial scientific evidence that Homo sapiens originated in Africa and gradually spread to other continents. Yet, the persistence of the Adam narrative is not limited to mythology and religion. This story has also been used for political and ideological purposes. Especially during the Middle Ages, the Church used the story of Adam and Eve to maintain social order and define gender roles. The narrative of Eve eating the forbidden fruit and committing the original sin laid the foundation for women to be seen as second-class citizens throughout history. If humanity had not descended from Adam and Eve, the belief that women are biologically or morally bound to submit to men would also be invalidated. Therefore, it is possible to say that the story of Adam was not only a religious tool, but also a mechanism of social, cultural, and political control. Many historians and anthropologists emphasize that religions are not just belief systems, but structures created to maintain social order in specific societies. If the story of Adam and Eve were completely fabricated, could it have persisted as a narrative serving so many different social structures? In conclusion, it is not possible to consider the story of Adam and Eve as a real event from scientific, historical, and cultural perspectives. However, the persistence of this narrative is directly connected not only to religious beliefs, but also to the human tendency to create stories and the mechanisms of social control. One of the strongest arguments against Adam being a historical figure is the presence of similar but different variations of his story across different cultures. If the claim that a single individual was the ancestor of all humanity were true, all cultures would have to share the same story. However, many ancient cultures around the world have told different versions of the creation of humanity, each developing a narrative suited to their own belief systems and cultural contexts. This clearly shows that Adam is a figure created within a specific cultural framework, a belief symbol rather than a universal reality. For example, in ancient Egyptian mythology, Atum creates himself and forms the world and the first human. Atum's process of creation symbolizes humanity's relationship with nature. The method Atum uses to create humanity emphasizes God's creative power and humanity's dependence on God. In Hindu cosmology, Purusha's body is dismembered, and the universe and humanity are formed from it. Purusha is the spirit of the universe, and humanity originates from his body. In Hinduism, this narrative is seen as a process of separation from a unity, carrying a deep philosophical meaning that links humanity with the universe. In Chinese mythology, the goddess Nuwa shapes the first humans from clay and then gives them life. Nuwa's creation reflects the Chinese people's close relationship with nature and forms the basis of this relationship. In each culture, the creation of humans takes shape around different symbols and gods, which is one reason why the figure of Adam exists in different belief systems. Furthermore, the view that Adam was a historical figure ignores these cultural variations, despite the similarities in religious texts. For instance, in the Old Testament, the creation of Adam is described as God shaping a piece of clay into a human and giving it life. However, this story bears resemblance to the Sumerian myth in which Enki and Ninhursag create the first human from clay. This similarity shows that origin stories about humanity are derived from cultural and mythological elements. Adam's existence is, in fact, the essence of a cultural narrative, one that has appeared in various forms throughout different periods of human history. Another significant argument that Adam was not a historical figure is the documented evolutionary history of humanity and the transitions within it. Homo sapiens began evolving in Africa approximately 300,000 years ago and later spread worldwide, showing that humanity did not originate from a single individual. Fossil records, particularly of species like Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and Neanderthals, demonstrate the existence of different species. It is scientifically proven that these species interacted over time, becoming part of the evolutionary process. If Adam had been a historical figure, the evolutionary processes of the human species would have developed completely independently. But fossil and genetic evidence shows that humanity's evolutionary history is intricately woven together. Moreover, it can be argued that the origin of the Adam narrative points not merely to the creation of one human, but to a deeper philosophical and symbolic question about humanity. Religious narratives not only aim to explain human existence, but also focus on humanity's search for meaning, order, and the need for laws. The authority given to Adam by God to name the animals symbolizes humanity's attempt to dominate nature and define its place in the universe. This is not just a creation story, but a belief in humanity's place in the cosmos. Adam may exist not as an individual, but as an archetype for humanity. Therefore, the reality of Adam lies behind a broader mythological structure that reflects his symbolic and cultural significance. In Jewish mysticism, especially in Kabbalistic teachings, Adam is emphasized as a symbol. Adam's creation occurs through a combination of God's hidden names and letters. These teachings express that Adam is not merely a physical being, but carries universal and spiritual meaning. Such mystical teachings allow the figure of Adam to be seen not just as an individual, but as a reflection of humanity's spiritual and existential journey. In conclusion, it has been clearly demonstrated through multidisciplinary research that Adam is not a historical figure. Data from evolutionary biology, genetic sciences, archaeology, mythology, and the history of religions show that Adam cannot be a real part of human history, but rather shaped by various cultural beliefs and mythological narratives. However, the story of Adam is still accepted by many people today, and continues to be lived through various interpretations. For humans, Adam has become not only a mythological figure, but also a symbol with universal meaning for humanity. This symbol emerges from the search to understand humanity's place in the universe, its relationship with nature, and its connection to God.